Today's session is going to be the next phase of cloud security. So my name is Dragan Petkovic. I work for EMEA Hub, and I manage the compliance and technology there. And mainly I work with the access governance. Now, obviously, if you have a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. So if I look into security or cloud security in particular, one thing that I see that it's very user-centric, yeah. So at the end of the day, like users come from everywhere, so whatever you do, users are always your final frontier. So securing users, securing access to the users is one of the key things, and I'm sure you're going to hear more from other panelists today, yeah. So I've just looked into abstracts and I find it quite interesting here. So it says, if you read it yourself, is cloud environments demand more than patchwork, and they require security by design. I absolutely agree with that, but wouldn't you think that everything, regardless if it's on-premise or in the cloud, requires security by design? Yeah, I think so, yeah. So, but let's see why is it ever more important in the cloud. So let's do a little quiz. So when do you think this zero trust architecture that we're going to talk about today came into the mainstream? Like when this buzzword became popular? What's your take?
10 years.
That's pretty good, but it's a bit older, yeah? It's 2010, and it's been brought by Forbes, by Forrester analyst. And so Forrester analyst actually defined, okay, now you require actually security on each and every level. So there is no such thing as a privileged network, which means that you need to authenticate every level and every component of all of your stack, including users, of course, yeah. Like traditionally, what we thought about is once you pass the corporate boundaries of intranet, then pretty much you are trusted, yeah. But the whole concept is even a bit older. So actually, the zero trust architecture first time as the concept started in, what do you think, which year? 1994, yeah? When Paul, you were a young engineer at that time, yeah? Yeah, yeah, okay. So, and it was part of the PhD. So there is a gentleman that wrote a PhD in one of American universities that said that at that time, everything was pretty open, and we said, okay, we need to authenticate each and every component, and this is the actual foundation of zero trust architecture. Yes, so even like I investigated plenty of data breaches, and one of the biggest data breach I've investigated was in Saudi Aramco, which is the largest company in the world effectively, and the system that there was a breach there was not even connected to the internet. Yeah. And at the time, when we tried to scare our customers, so, you know, when we want to talk security, we talk about advanced persistent threat, yeah? So concept of advanced persistent threat is that attacker that has enough resources, both financial, human resources, and so forth, would attack high-value targets and would be as persistent as this target falls. So effectively in Saudi Aramco, what happened is on through the USB stick. This USB stick went into a computer. Then it went into HR system. On HR system, actually, some new users were added. And from HR system, those users had those physical access control cards. So someone gained the access into the whole field, yeah? So fast forwarding again, advanced persistent threat is obviously still a threat. So if you are like high valued asset, you would be still subject to advanced persistent threat. But in the cloud, we see more and more opportunistic attacks. Yeah. So if you're not, so from advanced persistent threat that you still need to be aware of, we move to opportunistic attacks. So if your cloud is misconfigured, like 95% of actually all the breaches in the cloud, Gartner says would be due to the customer error, due to misconfiguration. So still, you still need to think about any component that still needs to be secured. So typically, like back in the days when Amazon started, those S3 buckets were actually open to public for reading. Yeah, and actually And then finally, Amazon realized, okay, maybe this is not the best idea. And we see lots of vendors for cloud providers, hyperscalers, actually being more and more secure. But still, there are breaches. Like only maybe 1 month ago, my former employee, Oracle, had a big breach in the cloud. Yeah, and what that means for you as a customer is that just putting the data in the cloud is not enough. Yeah, so I mean, it's reasonably secure, but ultimately it's your responsibility. So trust no one, and that's all about zero trust architecture. So with that, I'm going to introduce the first panelist. So we are talking about Tristan Batep. Yeah, over here, Tristan. So Tristan is Director of Channel Sales UK and Ireland for SonicWall. And he's been talking a lot about security as an educator, and also I'm sure he's been involved in quite a few interesting events. So he's here ready to talk. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So, look, I'm going to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking around what we're seeing around CTNA, in effect. Talk to you around some of those buzzwords that I'm sure a lot of you have heard today and try and demystify some of that. A bit about what we do as an organisation, and then some best practice pieces that you can take away from today. Also, anyone who's attended the session, if you come to our stand after, you can get access to a trial of our product for 30 days as well. So for anyone who wants to take it away and consume it and try it out in their own environment, you know, absolutely happy to try that. So how many of you know who SonicWall are? Show of hands. Oh, good. Job done. So, you know, we're a 30-year-old network security, cybersecurity organisation based out of the US. We've got over 500,000 customers. We operate in 215 countries and territories. It's fair to say that we provide security. I get asked a lot around what verticals and what particular size customers we work with. We kind of fit everybody. There isn't really, because of our portfolio and the products that we have in our portfolio, we suit every type of organisation. So whether that's healthcare, education, whether it's a commercial organisation, a not-for-profit, we have a solution that works for everybody. So I wouldn't say we are siloed into a particular vertical or size of organisation. We kind of work with everybody and have different ways to consume our product as well. End-to-end portfolio. So obviously, we're talking today about the zero trust piece. So this is a particular technology that we acquired around 18 months ago that now forms part of our zero trust story. And the reason for that is we obviously saw a shift in how people were working, how people were operating. You know, organisations, not everybody's sitting behind a firewall anymore. So we need to be able to secure those people that aren't. Global intelligence. So we have a large threat network of over 1.2 million sensors out in the field that are constantly feeding back telemetry around what we're seeing from a threat perspective. So twice a year, we produce a threat report that really helps organisations understand where they should be investing and what they should be prioritising from a security standpoint over the next 12, 24, 36 months. More than a firewall vendor, as I said, that's kind of been our core product for a period of time. But you know, because of the changes we're seeing out there and the acquisitions that we've made now to really change what our portfolio looks like from a product perspective. So, brief overview, threat protection, obviously that comes as a standard across our portfolio. So whether that's remote access technology, so, you know, secure service edge or cloud secure edge, whether that's network security, so our traditional firewall products, endpoint, XDR, all of those products are underpinned by our threat protection. And what we've actually added this year as well is a insurance warranty around our firewall technology as well. So if you deploy our firewalls and they're configured in line with our best practice, we'll provide a warranty on those devices for up to $100,000. So again, it's just, you know, there's various ways that organisations are going from a product portfolio perspective. We've certainly seen that our portfolios had to change to help with that. So remote access is pretty simple, right? VPN, traditional, you know, user works from home, connects in, accesses the applications and the services that you need. In reality, that's not the case. So there's lots of complexity. If you look at VPN client software from a remote user perspective. User devices are very different. So, you know, you may have laptops, smartphones, tablets. You could be working from a workstation. Authentication methods. So, you know, passwords, MFA, certificates, various different ways that people are accessing the network as well and authenticating in. Those connections can be done in various different ways as well. So if you look at internet and public network, VPN, IPsec, SSL, WireGuard, you know, all of this adds to complexity. And ultimately, somebody's got to manage this, someone's got to support it. So, you know, this way of working, when we've got so many other exposure points out there now and so much more to do, we're seeing a definite shift from the traditional VPN way of accessing resources and the network to more of a zero trust cloud access model. So we talked a bit about the threat landscape. So as I said, we produce a threat report twice a year, and this gives us insights into kind of what we're seeing from a landscape perspective. So, you know, perimeter devices, traditional firewall, designed to keep the threats out, ultimately. Obviously, the way people are now working, post-pandemic, hybrid working environments, users are out of the, I suppose, the comfort of sitting behind a firewall. So we need to make sure that we're securing those users and preventing, and because they're ultimately more susceptible to phishing attacks, you know, stolen credentials as well. So hybrid working, as I said, has caused a large amount of that. And obviously the move to cloud services. So 365, Google Workspace, to name just a few, that's meant that organizations are making a move to these critical apps, which means they need securing. And of course, you know, AI is forming a big part of everything now as well. Key threat vector. So let's use, you know, business email compromise as an example. You know, highly effective tactic for, you know, getting into people's organizations, taking data. If you look at financial loss, you know, one in three cyber insurance claims in 2024 were off the back of a business email compromise. So, you know, there's a common attack pattern that we're seeing. You know, they may sit idle within the network for a while. They then take advantage of that document or that data, and then, you know, sit there waiting for financial transactions to happen before they can, you know, make their move and infiltrate the information they want. So zero trust mitigation will obviously help with that. So MFA, make sure that you're posture checking all your devices. So manage devices for a start, making sure that they are, you know what iOS or OS that device is running. You know, is it being kept up to date? Has it got antivirus on it that's up to date as well? And again, AI-driven threats. So we use AI within our organization to combat some of this. So our threat detection engine is AI-based, but obviously with AI-driven cyber threats, cost reduction is massive because it's being produced by AI. And obviously the spread of that is easier to do as well. So we're going to just cover a little bit of what I call buzzword bingo, because obviously there's a number of different terminologies and words that you'll see when we start talking about zero trust and SSE. So I think just to kind of demystify some of that. So ZT, zero trust. So that's not actually a product, but more of a model. So never trust, always verify. ZTNA, so that's zero trust network. So identity-centric policy. So if we're looking at, and what, as I said, what we're seeing now is more of a shift from traditional VPN. This is where this technology is coming in. SSE, so security service edge, you know, that's allowing you to secure access to internet, SaaS, private resources. SD-WAN, so again, we see a lot of that now across distributed network. And then SASE, so that's secure access edge, service edge, which is obviously a combination of your SSE security and your SD-WAN piece as well. So hopefully that kind of, lots of buzzwords going around. It's just quite nice to kind of demystify that. So how does a cloud service help? Well, in effect, the management of that security is being done by another organization. So in our case, it would be done by a security organization like ourselves. Improved performance and latency, you know, so you're not backhauling traffic potentially back into an office and then back out to the network. You know, it's going direct to the applications and the services that those users need. Infrastructure is kept up to date. So, you know, patching's done, rapid response to vulnerabilities, again, because it's being done by a managed security organization like ourselves. Automatic upgrades as well. And again, certainly what we've seen from a roadmap perspective is features and services can be added very quickly because ultimately it's a cloud service. Very simple to deploy as well. So to stand up several hundred users, several thousand users in some cases is very simple. Let's look at the model. And I think, what we've seen with how we've put this product together and how we've gone to market is some companies might just want, in effect, a VPN as a service model. So only buy the licensing that allows you to do that. So we've split our solution into different categories, and then you just stack these services on top. So if you're looking at going down a zero trust or a ZTNA model, think about what you want to access, how you want to access it, and then build your license model in the background to ensure that you're only really paying for what you need access to. And also the users that need maybe access to software as a service, for example, only license those users. You don't need to license everybody. So again, it makes it more cost effective for you. Zero trust principles and benefits. So no implicit trust. So inside or outside of the corporate LAN. So every request for data or access or application in every case undergoes user authentication, so strong MFA, device verification. So like I said, we're checking that device to make sure it's running the latest software, firmwares, it's patched to correct levels, and continuous authorization. So it's not once you're in, that's it. We're continuously checking to make sure that the risk score associated with that user is okay, and we feel comfortable with them accessing the network. A reduced attack surface as well, and clearer visibility. So, the reporting that comes with this, the ability to see what users are accessing what, it's a lot more clearer and defined with a zero trust approach. So let's look at some of the practical implementation steps. So identify and classify your assets. So what applications, data, map out who needs them. That will help you when you start to build the license model that you need to consider based on who needs to access what applications within the network. Deploy a pilot. So, start with a subset. We always encourage our customers to do this. Identify a subset of users within your organization and deploy a pilot as a small group. That will allow you to fine tune your policies and the rules behind it and the access rules you want to put in place. And then you can see how as an organization you're going to consume that technology. Establish your posture requirements, your device posture requirements. So a minimum OS, put some standards in around your endpoint, levels of patching as well. Just build out these implementation steps. Set up MFA, use an app or token-based MFA. We try to encourage people to, avoid basic SMS. Microsegmentation as well. So, break up your network to allow, so, if the worst happened and you were compromised, those users aren't then, or those people aren't then traversing across your entire network, which is obviously important. And associate yourself, look at the services around SIEM and SOC as well to, help with shaping, and identifying any anomalies you might be seeing. Make sure your policies are refined and as you need them to be as well. And finally, just some recommendations and best practices. So adopt a breach mindset. Assume attackers have already initial access, so build that segmentation to minimize the disruption that you might see. Enforce strong MFA, we've already talked around that one. Monitor and analyze user behavior. So anything that looks a little bit untoward or a little bit strange, you're identifying that and doing something about it early. Regular patch management, as we said, build a comprehensive backup strategy. If the worst happened, how many of you in this room now have a backup strategy, and how many of you rehearse that as a strategy as well, that if something did happen. Leverage the threat intelligence. So, use the real-time data feeds that you're getting from your vendor of choice, hopefully us, to make sure that you're blocking the latest threats that we're seeing to make sure that you're kept up to date and protected. And ultimately, we can do all of this and you can deploy all this technology, but you have to keep education of your workforce as a primary piece as well. You know, a lot of what we see is down to human error, and human misjudgment. So, you know, making sure that your workforce are readily being kept up to date as well. As I said, please come along to the stand. If you want to talk further about it, we've got a demo on the stand. And if any of you that are in the room today want to come and sign up for a 30-day free trial of the technology, please come to the stand and we can talk you through and get that done for you as well. Thank you.
Before you go on, are there any quick questions for Chris? Oh, there's one over there, sir.
Are you going to phase out hardware?
No. Because I think you'll still need a local firewall. You know, if you've got offices, you know, there's maybe an argument that, and don't let my CEO hear it, but that if, you know, everybody's in the cloud, everybody's working from home, and you haven't got an office of physical presence, then yeah, you know, I was in a meeting this morning with a customer that's looking at going that way, and they are going to do away with a hardware appliance because they're not going to have an office. But you know, we've just released, from a technology perspective, we've just released our latest generation of hardware firewalls in the last 3 weeks. And typically, when we launch a new product from a hardware perspective, it has a minimum of 5 to 6 years. So I don't think we'd be going down the route of releasing new hardware with new enhancements. What we've actually done is, as part of our firewall business now and portfolio, every firewall you buy from us, you actually get some cloud secure edge licenses bundled with the firewall devices, because we're now seeing customers move to that, you know, moving from a traditional SSL VPN to a cloud secure edge environment, or adopting that as a technology. So we're actually seeing a move to go, well, actually, if you're buying the firewalls, great, but how are you accessing your cloud resources? Let's bundle some licenses in so you can actually start seeding some of your users within your environment. Yeah, good question. I think it, you know, sorry, how do we balance security with user experience? Which I think is a great question. I think, you know, it's understanding the experience that the users are going to have. Are they going to, if by restricting their access and making the security vitally important, is it really going to restrict their experience to the point that it's going to be a detriment to their work? You know, if I think about education, when you're trying to deploy secure edge or any kind of deployment within the education sector, is a very fine balance between securing those users, but at the same time still being able to allowing them to do the research and the work that they need to do. So it's a fine balance. I think it very much depends on the vertical, and obviously, you know, reaching a balance between, you know, if you're in an organisation or a vertical that's very compliancy driven, making sure that the compliance is the priority, probably over that user experience, because ultimately that's the important piece. But yeah, very, very environmentally different depending on the vertical, I think.
I have one more generic question. So this data run is driven by NIS2.
Correct.
And how do zero trust architecture and NIS2 relate to each other?
So if I take an example of, and I could take real world examples of where we're having conversations at the moment, and a lot of that is around third-party contractors. So third-party contractors that you have to provide access to corporate resources, organisations providing a cloud secure edge or zero trust solution to help with that NIS2 compliancy. So giving those users, in our case, a cloud secure edge license to allow them to access into the resources that they need. Because of the way we do our licensing model as well, and again, this is kind of one thing that I would ask you to look at when you're looking at this as a technology, is how do you want to consume it? Do you want to go and buy a 1 or a 2 or a 3 year upfront and consume it as a CapEx acquisition? Or do you want to buy it on a monthly build model? And what we've actually done, and where it works very well with the contractor piece, is we bill monthly with no minimum commit from a term perspective and no minimum user count. So you may have a subset of contractors that you or users that you need to give access to for a period of time. And that period of time may only be 60 or 90 days. So you can license them for 60 or 90 days and then terminate their licensing. So you're not tying yourselves into big contracts. But yeah, certainly around this too, there are a few areas. We've actually got a white paper as well for anyone who's interested around this too. We've got a white paper that we can, if you come to the stand again, when you come and get your trial, we can send you that white paper out as well that talks around all the different areas of NIS2 that we can help with.
Just one last question, if that's possible. You mentioned identify and classify assets. How would you do that?
How would I do that?
Yeah.
How would I do that?
Don't see me on stand 38.
Love that. Love that. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan. So let's welcome our second speaker. He's Jonathan Fuster, and he is global head of cyber elements. I'm not going to do a long introduction, but you'll hear anytime soon.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Hi, everyone. All right, so we talk about zero trust. What a surprise. And I would pretty much say the same thing. So if you're leaving the room without knowing what is exactly the zero trust, that's a big issue. So, but let's deep dive into zero trust and set the key principles. But just let's start by a few numbers that is provided by our friends at Gartner. 63% of all organizations already have a zero trust strategy in place. So seems to be good. But the next point is that more than half of those don't really understand what is zero trust strategy. So they put some products in place, products with the zero trust, I would say, label, but they don't really fully understand what is a zero trust strategy. So what I wanted to do today is to give it a big picture so we can, I would say, really understand what is zero trust, what is a zero trust strategy. Of course, we'll talk about cyber elements and how we can help you to cover the different subjects. But let's talk about the NIST, so the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. So it's a US organization. So we don't all like the Americans, but sometimes they're producing great content. And the Zero Trust Architecture doc they just produced a couple of years back is really interesting, and it's pretty much straight to the point about what is a real zero trust strategy. So instead of asking you to read the 80 pages of this report, I'm just bringing with me a few, I will say, the big picture and giving you the basic tenets of that. What is a zero trust architecture? So there's a couple of things to really understand about the zero trust strategy. The first point, so in a nutshell, you just have to stop trusting anyone all the time. So that's what we were talking about. It's stop trusting and always verifying users, devices, context. So it's all about constant and I would say continuous authentication. And if we, I would say, deep dive onto those basic tenets, the first one is that you have to consider now every single data source or application or computing service as a resource. And so we're not talking about resources. So you will list all the resources you have inside your organization. So all the resources on one side, all the users on the other side. And so you will create, I would say, access policies to say, okay, this user can access to those applications, but not the others. That's the basic things. Now, all the communication should be secured, no matter or regardless the network or location. You know, back in the days, we were considering that if the user was connecting from the office on the local network, it was okay, it was fine, no need to secure that much. They can directly access to the different services. That's enough. You just have to stop doing that because, well, we don't have any more, I would say, perimeters. The traditional local network doesn't exist anymore. We have apps in the cloud, we have users on premises, but also connecting remotely. So we have applications everywhere and users everywhere. So there is no more perimeters as we, I would say, considered back in the days. And so now the identity is the new perimeter, because that's the only thing we have in common when we look at all the applications and all the users. The identity is really the key. And so you have to put all the security measures on the identity rather than on the, on the local network. All the accesses should be accessed, I would say, on a kind of session or per session. So there is no more lifetime access to a specific application or a specific network. You have all the time, you need all the time to grant access and to recheck again and again. So if, as a user, I'm getting access to an application today, maybe I will not get the same access tomorrow because the context is changing. So you just have to assess and to recheck and again and again. So it's like doing the laundry, you're never done at the end. Access to a resource is based on what we call a dynamic policy. Who's the user, his role, his job inside the organization, what type of device he's using, where the user is coming from. Is the user connecting on I would say, office or connecting remotely from a remote place? So we have to look at the context, and the context will say, okay, we can grant access to this user, to this application or not. Of course, we have to, you have, as a company, organization, you have to monitor and check in real time what people are doing, who's the users connecting to the different applications, what they are doing, and try to detect if they're doing something wrong. So you can define policies of what you allow and what you don't. And if we detect something that is wrong, so we can take an action. Blocking, freezing sessions, sending alerts, at the end being sure that the right user is accessing to the right application at the right time and doing the right job. That's part of the zero trust principles. And so you will collect a lot of information in real time, being sure that, again, we know exactly the users, the applications, and what's going on in real time. When we talk about the network, back in the days, we were considering that the local network of the company was kind of implicit trust zone. This is not the case anymore, because again, this network is now open to, I would say, the external world. We are dealing with SaaS applications. We are connecting data sources to the outside world. So there's no more perimeters again. So there's no implicit trust zone, no matter if you are, I would say, still controlling the local network or not. It's not anymore kind of trusted zone. The next point is about the endpoints, the devices. Back in the days, again, we were dealing with managed devices. Today, we have remote users using their own devices that you don't really control. That's a risk. So there's not anymore a single device that should be trusted by default. There's no, again, implicit security. Same for the resource. There is not a single resource that is by default, by any nature, trusted. Again, you don't control applications. You are dealing with SaaS vendors providing you some applications, so you have to put some measures on top, being sure that there is no threat. And the last point is about the remote access again. We have more and more third parties, contractors, employees working remotely. That's a big game changer. Again, you don't control the context, the device, and so you have to put all the emphasis on the identity. Again, I'm saying all the time the same things, but it's really important to understand that. The use cases that we see usually when we talk about zero trust approach, there's usually three different use cases. The first one is the remote access, again, connecting remotely to the different applications, no matter where the application is and no matter where the user is. The second use case is the privileged access. So users accessing to a privileged resource, a privileged application. Might be IT or OT administrators, might be a third party that needs to access to a very critical application. So those users need to be, I would say, considered as really privileged users. And so you have to, on top, add some key features or key measures like session recording, real-time analysis, again, being sure that those guys are doing the right job on the different critical environments. And that's down to the last one, which is external service providers and MSSPs. We have more and more, I would say, customers dealing with third parties, and so they have to secure those guys as well. Usually we are coming from a world where we're I would say, comparing a VPN, classical VPN approach with a ZTNA. I don't want to deep dive that much. Just keep in mind that instead of talking about granting an access between an endpoint to a network, we are just raising the bar, talking about connecting a user to a set of applications. And so again, you have to control, depending on the context, you have to check the device, the context, the user, the identity of the user, being sure that it's the right user connecting at the right time, and connecting to the different resources. That's just a kind of basic comparison between a VPN that's more on the network side and the ZTNA, which is more about the resource and user strategy. Again, when you are looking for a zero trust strategy, for a zero trust product, then you will have to look for a product that is able to manage identities, to enforce MFA, single sign-on, to define clear policies that you can apply in real time. And of course, that is by default providing you a remote access feature. At the end, it will be exactly the same look and feel and the same user experience, whether the user is connecting from the office or remotely. At the end, it's exactly the same way to connect. When it comes to talk about the Cyber Elements platform that we have, if we just look at how we can, I would say, map the tenants with the features we have. So when we talk again about configuring everything about a resource and securing all the communications, it's down to the architecture we have. We have a double barrier architecture with a central access point, which is the controller that is enforcing authenticating people, enforcing the different policies. And then you can have one or multiple gateways that are close to the apps that you wanted to give an access to. And so we are granting access, again, for each user to a specific application each time that it's really needed. So it's not a lifetime, I would say, communication between the user and the app. It's on demand, and we are assessing all the time to be sure that it's the right user. And so that comes with key features like the dynamic and continuous posture check, checking all the time if there is any change on the device, on the context, IP address, date, time, location, whatever. We're also checking the behaviors of the user. What we have is a great behavioral biometrics MFA. We're looking at the way that users are typing on a keyboard or moving a mouse, and we can detect if the user behind the screen is not the good one. And again, if there is any changes, we can freeze the session, we can block, consider an alert, we can do something. That's the big thing, doing something in real time. That comes also with session recording, just-in-time access. That's also a big thing, being sure that, again, we're not granting access for I would say, a long time. We're all the time assessing things and giving, again, the just-in-time access. And the last point is the zero standing connection, being sure that if the user left, there's nothing more open, there is no remaining connections, we're just closing everything. And if the user wanted to come back, then we'll have to redo all the process. Everything about the access resources and I would say, real-time monitoring, that's down to the access and authentication features we are providing. Again, you can define policies, granular policies that you can apply to users and to resources. So for the same application, for the same resource, some users might be granted with a specific level of access, some others maybe with more or less, again, depending on your policy that you wanted to set up. And of course, we are tracking real time, we are recording sessions. So it's like a CCTV system. Every single session is recorded. We are looking at all sessions, detecting if something is wrong, and taking automatic action. At the end, being sure that we can prevent a bad actor doing a bad job. And of course, we're also providing MFA, as I just mentioned, about behavioral biometrics. So that's the kind of MFA we have. Single sign-on for, I would say, automatically injecting the right credentials into the right apps without having to disclose those credentials to the end user. That's pretty much it that I wanted to talk to you today. Just try to map again the NIST architecture.
Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Johnson. Sorry. So we all going to sit in a few minutes here, but there's one question, so maybe we can start immediately. Yeah.
We did a presentation with a couple of customers for me last year. And in the meantime, I've noticed quite a number of the password manufacturers, 1Password Keeper, have come into your space.
Yeah.
And they're all pushing it like crazy, like they want to get out of the password business fast. But they're annoying and they're getting in the way. Are they a problem at the minute?
Good question.
There's PAM solutions coming from Keeper,
Yeah.
from 1Password, whoever LastPass are, if they're still alive. And there's a big push on them from them.
Yeah, that's a good question. Generally speaking,
Could you distinguish between them and you?
yeah, I would say that we see a kind of consolidation of the market. So we see PAM vendors acquiring ZTNA solutions, password managers trying to do PAM as well. So there is a kind of consolidation around zero trust identity and access management global platform. Back in the days, we were dealing with, for example, with Keeper security integrating. We have a few customers keep using Keeper as the password vault and using our PAM solution on top. So yeah, let's be honest. It's not an issue, I will say. They are quite good at the password vault features, not yet on the PAM side, and it takes I would say takes a long way to be good at the PAM, IGA, and identity management. It's not just about password management. So let's take it that way. So yeah, we see that as well. It's not an issue today for us. We'll see in the future.
Thanks. So I'll invite both you and Tristan to sit in a panel together with me, and then we'll go ahead and you can ask as many questions as you want. Thank you. Great session. Thanks. Works? Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Okay. So,
It's me again. And there's two questions, an open question really, one of which is, where does AI fit? You know, what contribution can AI make to a zero trust strategy?
Do you want me? That's a good question. Yeah. So zero trust is a buzzword, as we know, but it's, I will say, I would have a couple of great examples about the AI integration. The first one is the behavioral biometrics that I've just mentioned before. Using AI, we can, I would say, exactly know who's the user behind the screen by the way of typing on the keyboard or moving the mouse. So that's a great example of AI integration into our product. The second feature is about the session analysis. When you are dealing with hundreds of sessions every day, you cannot watch all the sessions. Otherwise, you will pay one or two guys looking at every single session every day. Doesn't make sense. So we have a feature that is able to automatically analyze and give a kind of score and highlighting the, I would say, most dangerous sessions or suspicious sessions that you have to look at. And so we are doing that through AI, using AI. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's available on the platform. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. We have a question here.
Hello. Just a quick question about MFA. Everybody keeps talking about it like it's... Is there an evolution from MFA, especially if you have users to bring their own devices?
I think from my perspective, MFA is what we're seeing out there in the market. We haven't seen a evolution. Any MSPs in the room that can comment on what they're seeing from a...
Well, maybe I can comment because we manage a few vendors that do passwordless. and some of them are moving into better experience. So one is that, for instance, you can do it with WhatsApp or any other chat application that you don't need to. If you have a mobile device, normally you will have to go from one app to another to authenticate. Yeah. So what you would have is you start a session and then you get a WhatsApp message and it would ask, is that you or not? And you said yes, and then you would be authenticated. So that's one thing that we are seeing. The other thing that we are seeing is the silent authentication, and this has to work hand in hand with the telco providers. And simply, you have the API where actually you can query the device that is this really, have you swapped the SIM? Is this the really device that you've been to? And then what you do probably is put a token on the device itself. So it makes re-authentication much easier, especially if you swap devices. So that's kind of evolution that we are seeing. I don't know. Would that make sense? Yeah.
For a company that's struggling with dividing ways to have their users do MFA,
Yeah.
if they had to swap between Google Authenticator,
Yeah.
swap to Microsoft Authenticator, so many.
Exactly. And one thing is specifically if you use like a Google Authenticator, then it makes sense. But the question is, when are you going to use your Google Authenticator for in-house, application, and then when are you going to use for third-party application? And managing this sometimes is a bit cumbersome. So you can pass by the booth. So I can introduce you to the vendor if you're interested. Yeah, yeah. We are EMEA hub. Yeah. What's the number of? 38. Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi again. What do you think are the biggest challenges the companies are facing right now when they are trying to implement zero trust in a hybrid cloud environment?
I think from what we see, we've got a lot of customers at the moment that are migrating from the traditional SSL VPN model to a zero trust. I think from our standpoint, commercially, the initial cost of doing that can be higher than maybe what they're used to from a traditional VPN model. But obviously, there's the cost savings around the management of everything, the fact it's a cloud product as well. So we're seeing that, and also building out. I suppose your base, as we talked about in the slides, around what your minimum policy is going to be around posture of checking of devices, understanding and identifying your applications and who's using them. So doing that work in the background to establish, I suppose, a base model, understand what users need access to what, which is why we always encourage companies to trial it, because they can trial it, they can understand where and how people need to use the technology, who needs access to what their current setup is as I said, from a device perspective standpoint, who needs access to what applications, and then they can start building that out. So that's why, as I said, the trial piece is important.
Okay. 1 second.
Hi. So my question is with regards to AI. You spoke a bit about the integration that you have with it, but have you seen any research or have you looked into how malicious actors are potentially using AI to then maybe mimic the way a user or a real person would actually use the computer? Because we've already seen it being used in phishing with emails, being able to replicate the way people phrase things, with deepfakes and the way people look, even their voices. It's really easy now. So do you have any insight into doing that from a computer navigation perspective?
Okay.
The only bit I was going to say is we've got some, as I said, in our threat report that we produced. We've got, thanks. The threat report that we produced, the last one that came out in February, had a big section on AI. So if you want to come past the stand, I can provide you with the content on that. and you can digest it in your own time. But yeah, there's a big piece on there that what we're seeing through our threat network is the adoption of AI as well from a cyber perspective. So yeah, we've got some information we can share with you. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something on top, and probably jumping back on the previous question about the challenges. I think zero trust applied to users accessing to resources are not quite well covered. I will say we can do that really easily. You just have to go step by step, as you said, with a pilot and then extending to the different type of users. The big thing, and that's probably the topic for next year, it's about NHI, non-human identities. That's probably the next big thing about where the attackers are trying to tackle and try to enter the company. And with Gen AI, I will say, people don't really understand that we're probably, for one user, for one, I will say, user identity, we have 10 NHIs standing on the system. And so that's probably the next big thing, covering those NHIs, trying to really understand how much non-human identities, account services, API keys, SSH keys, service accounts, so all that type of NHIs that are already on the different systems. We're adding on top with Gen AI more and more, I would say, non-human identities. That's probably the next big thing. Yeah.
Okay, question here.
Hey, hi. I just have like two questions. First, like when we talk about the various firewalls and when we compare with the checkpoint, like checkpoint is one of the leading one, which has a very customizable solutions and easy to deploy the policies or the IDPs. So when we compare Sonic Well's products with them, what's the difference? And if we also take a look at the Cisco's, so if we compare with Cisco, like how the IDPs are and the packet analysis are on this. Yeah.
Look, from my perspective, we compete very well with the Ciscos and the checkpoints of this world. I think what we've seen in the last few years is, there was a time that people would they'd procure that product because it was market leading and that's what they wanted. I think what we've definitely seen is budgets in a lot of cases aren't getting any bigger for customers. So their budgets are having to go further. We've got great threat intelligence. Our technology has come from probably more of an SMB mid-market background historically, which makes it easy to manage and easy to configure. And so I think what we're seeing now is a shift to customers going, we'll consume a SonicWall technology and we'll use the money that we're commercially saving by not investing in one of those other vendors to look at other areas. So cloud secure edge, for example, SOC services, because, as we talked about, it's more than just the firewall now. There's so many other areas and exposure points. You need to make sure you're covering all of them.
Okay, any other question? No. Okay, I might ask one. So we looked a lot about those different systems on the clouds, but what about industrial systems? And can we apply zero trust architecture to industrial systems, and how hard it is?
Yeah, good question. It's not that hard. I mean, it's the same way of doing things than on the IT side. The main difference is that we have to adapt to the different industrial protocols we see. So the idea is to be sure that we are covering all the, I would say, specific ICS protocols, make sure that we are supporting those protocols to establish connections between, again, users accessing to those ICS. The other difference is that when you're running a kind of industrial environment, you're adding on top the IT, because you still have the classical IT services, ERP, file share, and so on. So the idea, that's what we do with Cyber Elements. We can, with a single, I would say, platform, we can manage two different tenants or two different environments, one for the IT, one for the OT. So keeping a clear segregation between the two. But yeah, that's something we are covering very well now.
And what would you say, how the Cyber Elements differ from other offerings on the markets?
There's a lot of things, but a couple of key points. The first one is that we are a SaaS platform. You can get your own platform in 3 minutes. All what you have to do is go on a website, clicking on sign up. We are provisioning on the fly. So instead of keeping days and days installing the product, you got it. You got it in a couple of minutes. It's an all-in-one ZTNA, PAM, and IGA all-in-one platform covering everything about identity and access management. And I think it's time's up.
Okay, here.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, how would you apply ZTNA in IoT network, and what are the challenges in that?
Okay. Whom are you asking? Jonathan or Tristan or both? Okay.
I'm happy that we
So
can
it's-
if you come to our stand, we're going through it with James, who's our architect.
Yeah, I would probably give the same answer, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other last question before we wrap up? No? Well, in that case, thank you very much for your attention, for your questions. Thank you to the panelists. I think it was really useful. Thank you, Paul, for asking difficult ones. And we'll see you soon. Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.